Greetings, you delicious human. Welcome to episode 39. And as always, Sunny Bonani, Dumalang, Goeie afternoon, bon dia. Trust that this message is finding you well and swell. I've tried this recording a number of times. There's either been some kind of technological issue with there not being enough space on my camera, or my little speakers not having enough power to power them up. So I trust that this will be the final one that I'm doing. But yes, today's message was actually a big revelation for me. It was the awareness that I turn to God, the light of the Creator, source, consciousness, nature, who nurtures, whatever you subscribe to. English is a very limiting construct. So let's not get too fixated on the words we use. But yes, I have realized that I turn to God in moments of sadness or struggle or challenge or hardship significantly more than when I turn to God when things are going really well. And not to say that I forget about God. Please let it be known here and now that that is not what's happening. But I don't commune with spirit in the same way that I do when things are challenging and tough. And I was thinking, well, isn't that interesting? Why is that? It's almost like I am self-sabotaging myself, because like I just call on God when things are hard, and then when things are going well, it's like, thanks, amigo. So it made me think about if that's how I show up in other relationships. That's the first thing it's made me question or think about. And it's also made me question and think about like how I was brought up and where does it actually come from. So I was brought up in a very traditional Roman Catholic home, as most Portuguese girls are. And that sentiment and aspect of turning to God in moments of suffering. Hey, we got to suffer to connect to God is definitely something that is quite rampant in the Roman Catholic Church. I mean, to think that priests used to actually self-flagellate themselves. I'm not even sure if it still goes on. I'm sure it does. Where you actually like beat yourself up, or you cause harm on yourself because of the penance and the sin, and you turn to God in those moments. It's something that I've really recently become very aware of, and I want that to definitely be something that changes. I wish for God to be front row VIP seat, someone feeding God grapes, that kind of scene, when I'm winning and when things are going really well in my life. And it made me wonder, but why don't I do that? Why don't I do that? So that was one aspect that came up for me in terms of that whole self-flagellation thing, and being made to believe that God's there in those hard times, and then forget about God in the good times. But then I was like, but why don't I call on God in those good times? And then I also became aware, I have shared this before in another episode, but I've also become increasingly aware of how being joyful for me is something that I love to do. I love being animated and joyful and happy. But for some reason, many a times I feel that it's unsafe for me to actually be joyful. How crazy is that? It's insane, right? Insane. It's like quite unsafe for me to be joyful, or for me to fully express myself, or for me to show up here and be a little animated, you know what I'm saying? It just feels sometimes like a little unsafe. And then I'm like, where does that come from? Wow, that's that's deep. I'm even scratching myself as I'm thinking about this. Can you see? It's like this whole episode, I'm just scratching. Uncomfortable. Clearly it's uncomfortable for me to actually speak about this, which is very interesting. observing myself in my body. Yeah, so like I just think about an experience. I'm just thinking about one experience that pops into my mind now. How I love sending people voice messages, very animated. I endeavor to make people feel, put a smile on their dial and make their heart just feel a little bit better. And voice messages for me is just such a pure, innocent, and light, fun-hearted way for me to express myself in a way which I feel called naturally to do so. And I remember I still do it. So this experience that I'm sharing with you didn't stop me from doing it. I still do it. But I never forget my mom turning to me once. And I know she's just the messenger, guys. She's just the messenger to my own subconscious mind. I know. So I'm not going, Mommy, it's your fault. I'm not saying that at all. But I do remember her telling me once, why do you send those messages like that? Why do you send those messages? And I was like, ooh, like made me like think a bit about it. And yeah, ultimately I do it because it makes me feel better, because I know that I'm making someone else feel better in a way that's, yes, animated and joyful. And it's like watching a comedy show, because you want to feel a little bit more uplifted. So that's for me why I do it. And I remember, I never forget her, like, it was the facial expression more than what she said, like, that face. And then it made me realize that it wasn't safe for me to express joy when I was growing up as a child. Isn't that interesting? I thought that was really interesting. I'm just like watching myself as I'm actually saying that. And like I said, this is not a finger pointing exercise, guys. Really, it's not. It's just observation. And yeah, it's made me realize. It made me realize that, and then it made me think about, well, what's the correlation between me expressing my joy and communing with God? Well, I didn't feel safe to express my joy, and therefore perhaps I subconsciously feel like it's not safe for me to commune with God when I am joyful. Strange, right? But that's been an interesting little insight and revelation and epiphany for me, quite recently actually. And I definitely wish to change it, alter it, amend it, Alt Control Delete, as they would say, and download a new program where I invite and commune with Spirit, God, Light of the Creator, Source, God, Consciousness, whatever you want to call God, okay? Whatever you call God. Allah, Krishna, Buddha, whatever you subscribe to, guys. Yeah, just calling a higher source, a mentor, an all-knowing source into my life for both the good and the bad times. Like I want God to be my ride and die regardless, regardless of any of the experiences. And I'm sure God's up for it as well. I'm sure if you've watched that movie Bruce Almighty, it's bloody funny. If you haven't watched it, I'd highly recommend it. But there's a part where God gives this human godly access, if we can call it that, and makes him God for a couple of days. I can't remember how long, but it's literally only in a small little space. Okay, so it's not like the whole world, but it's like it's like a road or something. And like this guy starts to lose his mind because the prayers that he gets inundated with, the requests he gets inundated with, it's just a lot. And I don't want to be someone who's only sending God those post-it notes or those emails and letters when times are tough, because geez, that's gonna make him really sad and so fucking exhausted. Could you imagine just getting like dear Abby letters all day every day? No, man. I want God to come along for the whole journey, for the whole ride. On the motorbike, in the forest walks, smoking a J maybe from time to time. Yeah, just appreciating all those moments in our life that really bring us joy and fill us with so much bliss and wonder and delight and all things nice. Um, so, yes, and pausing to reflect if there's anything else I wish to share for today. So, yes, I do have a spot of makeup on today. I think it's the first time I've actually put makeup on for these daily vlogs. Something I don't do very often. My kids always have a lot to say whenever I even just wear mascara or blush. I think my youngest son was like, Mom, oh my gosh, you look like a stripper. Because I've got makeup on, guys. Anyway, the life of a mom. That's for another episode. Very, very, it's an amazing job. I love it. I definitely don't regret the job title, but as with anything, it comes with many perks, but also many eccentricities. You know what I mean. But yes, guys, it's 11:31 on the clock, and I'm not feeling called to share anything else. I think today's message was quite a big aha for me. And maybe just in closing, I would like to make it very apparent and clear to myself in this here now moment. And I wish to perhaps create a verbal agreement and contract with myself, inviting spirit to be fully a part of my life, not only in the moments of suffering, but also in those moments of joy and bliss and just reveling in the gift that is humanity and being human and living a human life here on earth in this here now moment. So yes, as always, you wondrous being, remember to keep sowing those seeds, allowing for the flow of life to find you and guide you so that you may ultimately grow, illuminate, and glow. Until tomorrow's episode, it's episode 40, so check you then. Peace out.